ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, which one of these is the best for real estate agents? That's what we're going to answer in this video. My name's Chris Scott, and I am a real estate digital marketer and AI strategist.
And I'm Kyle Strohschein. I'm a marketing specialist and AI integration specialist. And Chris and I are both with the Paperless Agent, where our whole goal is to make AI practical and profitable for your real estate business.
All right, Kyle, so the big question is this. Which LLM is the best for real estate agents? Is it ChatGPT? Is it Gemini? Is it Claude? I know ChatGPT has the largest market share, but the question really gets down to which of these is the best for those of us who are working within real estate. Let's say specifically real estate agents. Should they be using ChatGPT? Should they be using Gemini? Should they be using all three of these tools, or should they just be using one? That's what I want to dive into. If you could only choose one, which one would you choose if you were going to advise a real estate agent on which of these AI models to use?
That's a good question. I think it's a little like asking a parent which child is their favorite at this point. But if I had to choose just one, I would definitely choose Claude. How about you, Chris?
If I were going to advise a real estate agent, I would say to use ChatGPT. But these tools are not the same by any stretch. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. And so the question would be, at what point should I consider using one of these other tools?
Let's start with the biggest player, the one everyone's heard of and the one everyone is probably using, ChatGPT. ChatGPT is kind of your generalist, do-it-all LLM model, which I think is why it's so easy to recommend for most people, because it's going to do everything pretty well,
right?
Especially with the release of ChatGPT 5, their latest model. It even does things like switch between deep thinking and models on its own, so you have to even pick and do less to use it. Truly, they're trying to make it very user-friendly. If you just want a tool that's going to be pretty easy to use for those everyday use cases, things like drafting emails, writing listing descriptions. If there's anything you've heard of where it's insert prompt, get thing out of it, ChatGPT is going to do that job pretty well.
What I like ChatGPT for is for brainstorming in R&D. It's really good at interacting with me to help get to a good idea. I also find it's a really good editor. So I will use it even if I create a document, let's say in another tool. I will oftentimes take it into ChatGPT to do a quick edit and to edit for specific things, not just to tell me where my grammar is off. Here's an example. I have an advertisement that I'm using to generate leads, and it's driving traffic to a landing page. And I went and I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, here's this landing page that I have. It's converting currently at about a 15%. What would you do to this landing page to improve the conversion rate? And it just spat out a bunch of ideas. And just for the sake of the test, I literally just copy and pasted the recommendations that ChatGPT made to improve the conversion rate for this landing page. And so I implemented it, and it literally doubled the conversion rate just by making the changes that it suggested. Within about a week or so. For me, ChatGPT is great for those things, but it's also not great at certain things as well. It struggles with that multi-step, at least as at the time of this recording.
I would even say, if a step back from that, besides just connecting to other tools, I think it struggles following the directions you give it to the T. Say you had like an open house, a spreadsheet of all the attendees that you want processed in one way or another, and you then wanted an email crafted and written for each person on that list. ChatGPT gets pretty confused when it's breaking down like the spreadsheet first and then going into another task. I just feel those multi-step processes, it doesn't do as good a job adhering to the instructions you give it for. That being said, just I guess one more strength I'll hit on is its image generation, because I didn't mention that earlier. ChatGPT, their image model is very good. It's one of the best. It's especially the best if you're trying to generate an image from scratch, or if you have a style of illustrated social media post that you do. It's very good if you give it a few examples of generating another post in your style. One more feature of ChatGPT that I like is that it needs to go out to the web to find information. It does a pretty good job of giving you information that's relevant and timely. Some of the other ones like to pull old information, or they're not as good as processing it into chunks that make sense. So if you want like, go find me social media post ideas, of all the tools, I think ChatGPT does it best. It understands the context of that, the other things you're kind of looking for within that context. We'll give you a list with some research behind it that makes sense.
I agree. Okay, so let's get into Claude. We love Claude. It is a great writer. It is really good at keeping that creative context. Claude is excellent at understanding your voice, aka how you talk, how you sound, what are the colloquialisms or whatever, the idioms that you might use. What's the language and syntax that you use on a regular basis, especially if it has examples of that. And then replicate that voice, replicate that tone, replicate that personality in its writing. So I find that Claude is great at that activity, and on why I think more real estate agents and brokers should be using it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's its obvious strength over some of the other models, is that it is just that better writer. It does, like you said, Chris, do a great job of copying your style if you give it examples. But I think if you were just to go to it from scratch and you were to test, like, write me a post on the 78704 market, the one you get from Claude is going to feel more relevant. And that's a key into why Claude's the better writer, is that ChatGPT gives you generic marketing phrases that it inserts everywhere. Claude does some work to understand emotional hooks and tone and some of these other like writing techniques that actually make the writing sound engaging and like a real person wrote it.
What are some other ways that you're using Claude?
I use it for most data processing, actually. Claude is very good at following those instructions. So if I want spreadsheet updated, if I just want to like even produce something new that's based on data, I often go to Claude. That also carries over into things like, say you have a newsletter and you want it to be designed as a nice looking HTML template. Claude is very good about turning things into that. So if you were to write the newsletter in Claude and then you want it designed, you could go search the web, look for just a newsletter you like the look of, give that to Claude as an example and say, please take my writing and this newsletter and turn it into HTML and adjust like these colors or this column. And Claude will follow those instructions and accomplish that much better than pretty much any other model that I've tried.
I love Claude's artifact feature. And it makes a document, but it's not limited to just making documents. An artifact can be a template. It can actually be a program or code that it has written, or a form, or like all kinds of things. That artifact feature is really interesting, and how they've expanded it. Claude is definitely better at taking that source document and turning it into something that looks good, that's easy to read. And if I feed it my brand colors, that's even on brand.
Maybe we should talk about a downside or two for Claude.
Sure.
I'm going to share one that just came up earlier today because it's actually kind of a recent update. If you're using Claude, I wouldn't even say heavily, but more than just a handful of chats within a 4 or 5 hour window, the chances of you getting limited, like rate limited, are pretty high, even on their paid plan. So if you're doing something long, like just say writing a blog post, or you have some context and you're writing a few emails from that, like pretty basic stuff, even doing that 4 or 5 times within that hour, you might run the risk of getting limited and then having to put down what you're doing and pick it up many hours later, which can be very frustrating, which is what AI is supposed to help you do. So that's one thing that I've run into recently. And then when it comes to its deep research, just really isn't up to the same level that the other tools are.
Here's one of the downsides for it. It's not the best chat bot, and here's why. It's too verbose. It wants to turn everything into this essay, this narrative, heck, a poem, right? It's like sometimes, and for some use cases, I just want it to chat back and forth, and I don't want these lengthy chats. I need it to be brief, and Claude will come back and it's like writing, like it's Winston Churchill writing in his diary or something like that, these long troves of information. I'm like, I don't have time to read all of that. It sounds nice, it sounds pretty, but I don't have time to read all of that. So I would definitely say that's one of the limitations or things that it's not as good at, is that chat experience. Okay, so we've talked about ChatGPT, we've talked about Claude. The wild card I feel like is Gemini. I don't have as much experience using Gemini, you do. So tell us, what are the strengths for Gemini?
I've got a few standout use cases for Gemini. Deep research, which if you consider the fact that Gemini is made by Google, probably makes a lot of sense, that being able to plug into their own search engines and retrieve data and compile that into research. So I recently did a test on deep research for some blog posts we were trying to write, compared Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, I think a couple others just across the board to see which outputs were best. And Gemini's was probably the best information that was found. I also think it was structured the best. So it had a very logical flow to the information. I think it gave a really nice outline and then backs that up with like the data that it found. I also do really like their GEM, the GEM feature that it has, which is basically like a project in Claude or ChatGPT. If you have files that you work with regularly, a good example might be a marketing compliance thing, right? If you have like all the laws from your state, NAR, your brokerage, MLS, all of those in one place, Gemini does a very good job at referencing those documents and giving you suggestions or updates for following tasks that you have for them. The best lately, and to be honest, the thing I'm probably using Gemini the most for is its image and video capabilities. So image-wise, we actually have a video here on the channel all about Nano Banana. It's Google's latest image generation model. And what makes it better than, say, ChatGPT is that it's very good at maintaining the integrity of an original image. So what I mean by that is like, you need to do some virtual staging and you have an empty room with maybe some like really dated drapes in that room. If you were to upload that into ChatGPT, it can do a good job virtually staging it, coming up with new furniture and stuff to add to that room. But if you try to change those drapes, it's going to start making structural changes to the room and the overall picture. It's just not going to be the same house. If you take that same process and go to Nano Banana, you can edit very specific things about it. You can just say, hey, remove the drapes, and it will maintain the rest of the image, but just remove the drapes. It's very, very powerful and very, very good.
What's Gemini not so good at?
I think it's not as great at it sits somewhere for me, writing-wise, in between Claude and Chat. It's a little bit markety, a little bit professional. It ends up being kind of like a bland mix, and so it's not one of its strengths, I would say, is writing copy. And then I think just being late to the party, there are things when it comes to tasks or processing things where it just doesn't work quite like you would expect it to, or like you're used to maybe with ChatGPT and Claude, and it can take some getting used to. Think specifically of things like working with spreadsheets.
All right, there you have it. Ultimately, the best LLM for you in real estate is probably the one you're using right now. But we've talked about the pros and cons of these other LLMs. So whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Claude, or it's Gemini, it's definitely worth checking them all out at some point in time. But the best one is the one that you're using. If you found this video useful, helpful, profitable, practical, go ahead and like this video. Please subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.